Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Growing up on a Tasmanian dairy farm, my early days were full of big skies, long walks in gumboots and bike rides to visit my friends at other farms. As a child, I loved to sing and would make up songs to keep myself occupied while tagging along with Dad on the farm. Dairy farming in the 70s was not particularly lucrative. Faced with a choice of milking cows or office work, Mum took a job at the local council. Not having a stay-at-home mum in 1975 was the exception rather than the norm. Mum working meant Dad ended up with a permanent shadow after school and in the holidays, where more often than not I spent time out and about with him and the farm workers in the cowshed, on the tractor, at the sale yards and stock and stationations. It was a wonderful, carefree childhood. My grandparents all had 10 or more siblings, and while there were scores of relatives scattered around the state and the mainland, there were only a handful that still lived locally, and so we were a pretty tight little unit, Mum, Dad and my older brother Stuart. When it came to outside influences, there were 3 constants: the local newspapers, Johnny Cash and the ABC. At the time, I didn't realise how formative it was, but my parents were very engaged in the world around them. You don't realise how much you absorb as a child. Mum and Dad would read the local papers as well as the Melbourne Herald Sun, then relay and discuss stories with each other. My lifelong passion for the arts started early. It ran in my blood. My brother and sons are the same. Dad bought me a piano, complete with candle holders from the church auction, and my love of music grew and grew. At 11, I was offered a music scholarship to boarding school. I cried every night of the first year, but thanks to the care and compassion of the older girls at the school, I returned for 5 more years and the tears disappeared, and I never looked back. I love being in the school choir where we mastered 4-part harmonies, winning Eisteddfods and performing Sunday afternoon concerts in some of the most beautiful churches, from Evandale to Carrick, Launceston to Longford. Boarders were often roped in to make up the numbers, and I was cajoled into joining the debating team. It was incredibly nerve-wracking at first, but I got the hang of it, and it gave me a lifelong skill that has helped on my journey to where I stand today. Launceston was the centre of Australian politics in the mid-80s as the conflict stepped up to save the Franklin. Our school had a great outdoor ed program that opened my eyes to the rugged beauty of Tasmania. Bob Brown and the struggles to save the wild rivers started my thinking about the environment. I grew up on the edge of the Tarkine and knew the beauty of the native forests. None of what was happening in southwest Tasmania sat well with me. I would often visit the Wilderness Society Centre and proudly displayed the No Dam sticker on my school folder. This moment, when environmental issues became mainstream and my generation sat up and realised what was at risk for our future, was formative for me. When I was 18, I went on a Rotary Youth Exchange to South Africa, which was still under apartheid. It was 1987. My world opened up in many ways. I saw such raw beauty and cultural and religious diversity, but it was also shockingly confronting. People being kicked in the street, inequality, poverty and racism, and it was the beginning of my politicisation. I'd never been to Sydney and knew no one when I turned up as a 19-year-old to study politics. Tasmania might as well have been another country, and relating to that hope of a new beginning in a strange place is probably why I have an appreciation and affinity for those with a migrant story. Having spent 6 years at boarding school, 3 years of UNSW campus college life was like returning home. I made lifelong friends, and on the University Union I cut my teeth in governance and on committees. Ironically, I dropped politics halfway through second year for a double major in history and English. And it was subjects such as Roger Bell's Race, Slavery and Immigration and Paul Berent's Aboriginal Studies that had a profound impact on me. I got a job in the mighty Commonwealth Employment Service, no less, in the days before outsourcing and privatisation, when finding a job for people who were unemployed was still a vocation and an incredibly rewarding one at that. I was introduced to another section of our community and quickly realised that I loved helping people and excelled at finding solutions for them. I met my husband Michael there. We were members of the CPSU, huge fans of Keating, and we joined the Australian Labor Party. We wanted to make a difference and make a change. It was as simple as that. Michael and I joined our local branch, and Paul Elliott was the federal member for Parramatta at the time. He's there today. The people we met at the monthly FEC meetings made an indelible imprint on our lives. I have a lot to thank for those wonderful relationships in those early years. And during the recent campaign, I was struck that so many of these people came out to help me. We are still bound by the clarity of our common Labor values. Our humble house in Dundas Valley chose us. The cost of housing dictates where you buy your first home, which I note is tragically beyond so many of us these days, and something this government intends to address. But once our sons Byron and Hayden arrived, we set down roots, becoming embedded in our community, which quickly became more important to us than being upwardly mobile. Anyone who knows me will know I have strong feminist values. I wanted a successful career like my uni friends. However, with limited family support and Michael travelling for work, I made a decision to focus on our sons and held off on my career. Instead of pursuing an opportunity in local government, my sons and I posed for others' election material. Hayden and Byron featured in many a baby shot in a winning and sometimes losing DL. I have no regrets because this led me to becoming more absorbed in my community through volunteering, where I formed lifelong friendships while providing me with skills and connections that stood me in good stead later on. I developed an incredibly deep bond with my sons while supporting my community, from Ermington Uniting Church Preschool, Yates Avenue P&C, First North Rock Scouts, Cumberland Gang Show, canteen duties at Dundas United, to my local Labor branch and SEC. I'm not unique, and that's probably why I feel compelled to share this story, because the ordinary demonstrates the importance of having people like me here. To be a strong voice for your community requires being a part of and understanding, and it's through being immersed and embedded that in my mind makes for strong representation. I was approached to work in Tanya Gadiel's electorate office. The irony is not lost on the fact that I was sitting at my desk the day Jeff Lee walked into the EO to collect the keys after the 2011 state election. For 15 years, I had the privilege of working with Tanya, Nathan Rees, Julie Owens, Barbara Perry, Luke Foley and Julia Finn. And despite the popular media perception of much of politics, it was working closely with MPs that showed me it's actually the little changes you make in people's lives that give a deep sense of satisfaction. People want someone who can help them when they have nowhere else to go. Working for Barbara Perry, who juggled the very diverse, demanding electorate of Auburn with what felt like about 100 shadow ministries, and I'm not talking sport and the arts here, was next level. Barbara's EO was just an extraordinary place. There was no instruction manual for that job. It was like a community drop-in centre, people constantly coming in with incredibly complex needs, disease, disability and disadvantage, often with traumatic pasts from non-English speaking backgrounds, without family or financial safety nets. I was struck by the resilience of so many we walked beside. It was both exhausting and rewarding. From the moment you turned up at the doorstep until you went home that night, you had no idea what you would be in store for. We sometimes spent years walking alongside people, both battling and connecting with government agencies to do so. I established links with community leaders and groups that I still have today. Barbara's family has endured hours of her taking phone calls from people, including me, who need her support and advice. She has always remained true to herself and to her place. The qualities I revere and the reason why Barbara has become my trusted friend, mentor and confidant is as simple and profound as this. She always remained true to herself and to her place. It's my belief that working in some of the most disenfranchised communities has given me the credentials to be an effective Member of Parliament. And before I'm told this means I should have been a social worker rather than an MP, I say this: engaging with people with a lived experience of a policy area, or sometimes an infuriating and indifferent bureaucracy, is always an opportunity to grapple with the bigger picture, with how the system needs to be fixed. Working on systemic issues should be at the heart of politics. I am determined to be an effective member for Parramatta, a seat previously represented by Jack Lang. Jack served 2 terms as Mayor of Auburn, and Parramatta's new electorate boundaries now include that area where Jack Lang lived, Silverwater and Newington. As a student of history, the collision of paths is intriguing to me. The most famous politician to hail from where I grew up in Tasmania was his nemesis, Honest Joe Lyons. The Burramatical people of the Darug clan have gathered on their lands for 60,000 years. This was a meeting and ceremonial place between the mountains and the sea, where people came to conduct business and care for country, sustained by the river. Parramatta has great bones that are the envy of any other emerging city. A river, World Heritage parklands and buildings, national heritage, strong connection to First Nations, location, location, location. A place that is alive with an incredibly diverse population that is energised, eager and destined to succeed. Critical to our success is recognising what is so unique about us and ensuring that our sense of place remains. We know that socially and economically successful cities are places where families and individuals stay. Essential workers, artists, the elderly and families, they don't move away from. Right now, we have a once-in-a-century opportunity to make sure the private and public sectors work together to get the balance right so that Parramatta, from Wentworth Point to Westmead, enhances what is unique while delivering a place that is livable. And this is not something that will happen naturally. We only have to look at the recent loss of the Royal Oak and Willow Grove and the scandalous urban growth proposals for the rebranded Parramatta North. It reminds me of the 70s plans for the rocks that Jack Mundy resisted. It shows the same lack of vision, and rather than adding to the economy, will suppress it, because it will take away the exact things that build economies and attract people to a place. We're all familiar with the story of World Heritage listed Old Government House in Parramatta Park. On the opposite riverbank is a place of equal significance, although her story is seldom told. This is the place of the Parramatta Female Factory and Institutions Precinct, where from 1821 to 2008, thousands of women and children were institutionalised in state care. It is the most significant site of women's history in Australia. I look forward to working with the Federal Member for Parramatta, Dr. Andrew Charlton, and the Honourable Penny Sharp to push for World Heritage status for this precinct that has been put on ice for far too long. But we must not stop there. Parramatta has a strategic opportunity to expand its northern boundary to incorporate the Botanic Gardens of the Cumberland Heritage Precinct. The only way is up for Parramatta, and that means more people with a higher demand for open space. You can't magic up green space, and that is why we need to protect what we have. Ensuring the Botanic Gardens of the Cumberland Precinct are preserved as part of the Female Factory and Institutions Precinct and incorporated in Parramatta Park would be a legacy for generations to come. It must always be remembered that the sandstone blocks of the Parramatta Female Factory are as old and storied as those of Macquarie Street, Sydney. Both must be treated with the same level of respect. The battle for Willow Grove was more than a fight to keep just a house. Willow Grove was as much a part of the place of Parramatta as the new buildings such as Five. As Robert Hughes said, an urban culture that predicates itself chiefly on an obsession with development is not worth having. A city needs a deep memory, without which it becomes merely a stage set. The treatment of our First Nations people in Parramatta has a torrid past. We need to walk alongside and partner with First Nations people because there is still so much to be done to right the wrongs. I'm determined to be a part of a state government that actually makes the systemic changes we need to get things right. Our Premier's commitment to a treaty is critical to us succeeding, as is working hand in glove with the federal government to achieve the voice to Parliament. Until our First Nations people are no longer marginalised in their own country, we have not come close to succeeding. I turn now to people I want to thank who have shaped and supported me. Helen Westwood, an invaluable sounding board who lives and breathes Western Sydney. A gay woman, an activist, a unionist, a former mayor and MLC who has taught me the importance of staying the course. The skill of listening is critical to one's success, and I have taken heed of much sound advice and counsel from a parliament of wise owls, many of who are here today. Paul Elliott, Paul Houston, Chris Worthington, Phil Bradley, Michael Butterworth, Tony Ryan, Elizabeth Scully, Bill Sayers and Lisa Lake. To my dear friends Ian Carruth and Phil Russo and their respective wives Irene and Margaret, now passed, they have been such gifts. They saw in me a future way before I ever did. For years I was lucky to job share with Bronwyn Hannah, whom we quickly discovered should not be let anywhere near the front desk, but left to focus on the foster care system and saving Windsor Bridge. Thanks to Envy Yasser, who should be here, who has taught me so much about Middle Eastern geopolitics, about growing up Muslim in Australia. Michael NG, more family than friend, and Kun Huang, Fifi Esber, Lorraine Zaha, Rima Dabli, Paul Murphy, Lorna Jabor, David Halliday and Stephen Leslie, I also say thanks. I acknowledge Labor Party branch members, too many to name individually, but that does not detract from the impact so many have made on my life and more recently on my political career. I want to extend my thanks to all the councillors that I've served with during my time at the City of Parramatta and to council officers. Together we have achieved so much. Parramatta is where it's at, and we've definitely cemented its place as a destination to live, work, study and play. I acknowledge all those who I worked along to fight for Parramatta's heritage. No one more than the formidable Suzette Mead and her patient and loving, where is she? Is she there? No. And her patient and loving children, Liam, Matilda and Ned. What we failed to achieve in saving Willow Grove in its rightful place, we achieved in putting heritage significance front and centre in the populace mind. I thank my firm friend Paul Hogan, who along with Ashley Watson encouraged me to become a member of the UNSW University Union, my first introduction to standing up and being counted. To James Cullen, whom Michael and I first met when he was still at Parramatta Marist, and even then, for someone that young, he had an appetite for all that Labor stood for. He was like a sponge, taking it all in, and we knew from that age where his future was headed, and it has been delightful to watch James's career develop. I never ever expected that we would now be linked in this way, working together here in this place. Our friendship and mutual connections have proved invaluable to me and a key contributor to why I'm here today. I thank Tanya Gadiel, Nathan Rees, Julie Owens, Barbara Perry again, and Julia Finn for the opportunity to work for you and learn from you. Luke Foley gave me a gift when I ran his electorate office in Auburn while he was leader of the opposition. He relied on me to hold the fort so much so that with a wry smile he would introduce me at events as the member for Auburn. I still had no ambition then or any clue I would end up here, but the skills, relationships and experience I gathered in that role for 4 years gave me the confidence to run for council, and for that I am grateful. While in that role, I want to thank Chris Willis, Julian Lee, Dan Maloney, Todd Pinkerton, Michael Buckland, Michael Samaras, Lee Belia and Jenny Williams for having my back. It was a tough gig. I know Enver and I changed Julian's life forever when we initiated him in Auburn with a halal snack pack. I thank Anthony Dale, an incredibly competent doer who has played an enormous part in my 3 campaign successes. Dom Offner, an ethical, genuine, kind and spirited leader. Bob Nanver for your wise counsel and leadership. The unflappable Liam Rankin and his budding apprentice Dan McGee. The boy from Loftus who, despite his Samsung Galaxy and aversion to Google, proved himself to be a campaign pro. To Shane Bentley, Suman Saha and Zion Langford, I am eternally grateful for your unwavering commitment and steady hands. Madam Deputy, could I please have an additional time?
The member seeks an extension of time. And granted.
To all the MPs and MLCs who came out to support me during our campaign, I thank you, and for the wonderful engagement of Dr. Andrew Charlton, Jerome Laxale and Sally Situ, for whom I share boundaries. Billy Bragg never penned a truer line. There is power in a union. And with this goes enormous thanks to Graham Kelly, Mark Morey, Mel Gatfield, Rita Malia, Unions New South Wales, the PSA, New South Wales Nurses and Midwives Association, especially the members at Westmead and the Children's Hospital Westmead, the New South Wales Teachers Federation, the IEU, the CFMEU, the ASU, the UWU, and the United Services Union. To my community and organisations right across the Parramatta, Auburn and Epping electorates, as well as the Parramatta LGA, there are too many to acknowledge for fear of missing some, but I look forward to building on our relationships over the next 4 years. To Chris Minns, our Premier, I thank you for all those trips to Parramatta and for putting people first. One of the highlights of the campaign was Chris playing Thunderstruck and Shallow with Kyle and Jackie O. And at the time, I told the Parramatta campaign team if we won, I'd do a duet. Only time will tell. To my in-laws, Davida and Ken, Mark and Sue, the past few years have been a wild roller coaster ride. While much of my time was consumed with council and the campaign, my loving husband was juggling work with his family's health issues. Michael's dad, Ken, was a GPS boy, Glebe Public School. He loved to tell that line. And like my mum, he was also a council employee, Sydney City Council, from school leaver till retirement. Labour to his bootstraps, Ken was always keenly interested in my endeavours and extremely proud of what I had achieved to become Lord Mayor. And sadly, Ken passed away last October. Michael's mum, Davida, lost the love of her life. And now she resides on level 1 of a Western Sydney aged care facility while her daughter is in a room downstairs. My brother-in-law Mark couldn't be here today as he will be attending to Sue, but it is my promise to him and the people of Parramatta to keep up the push for palliative care at Westmead. We all deserve to die with dignity, close to our families. Sadly, my mum is also unwell and not with us here today. Mum's tenacity, attention to detail, sense of humour and fashion have been borne out in me. Scott Morrison single-handedly led my mother at the age of 87 to vote Labor for possibly the only time in her life. Despite Mum coming from good Labor stock, with her cousins Jeff Chisholm having served in the Tasmanian Parliament, Kim Polly, former Northern Midlands Mayor, and Senator Anthony Chisholm in the current federal government, a Labor bloodline not to be sniffed at. I spoke to Mum on Tuesday night and she said how proud she was and how proud Dad would have been of that little girl in gumboots who followed him around on the farm. And today is for my dad. My brother Stuart was also unable to be here today. Our shared interest in music and film has always brought us together. Our shared political views veered us in the opposite direction to our parents, giving us the perfect opportunity to stir the possum with Mum always taking the bait. To Byron and Hayden. I did give you a chance to read this speech first, but you chose not to take that opportunity. My sons are my pride and joy, and I love them so much. They have been integrally part of our desire to make the world a better place. We would drag Byron and Hayden along to branch meetings where they would sit at a corner table with their books and a few toys. Hayden recounts one meeting I was chairing when I kept saying we were waiting for quorum so we could start. He remembers that some time later a guy walked in the door and I said, "Oh, we've got quorum." Hayden thought to himself, "Finally, I know what this quorum guy looks like." Out of the mouths of babes. While we often talk about what parents sacrifice for their kids, my sons have certainly sacrificed a lot for me. They've waved placards, created iMovies, put up yard signs, letterboxed, given fashion advice, and counselling sessions, to me of course. Set up booth kits and polling booths and built A-frames. They've cooked, cleaned, done the washing and kept the house functioning. They've suffered every possible embarrassing aspect of being the sons of a politician, and yet they still come back for more. Alongside me all the way has been my husband, Michael. I never expected to be here today, but apparently he did. Oh, there you are. Seeing in me what I couldn't see myself, and for that I am eternally grateful. I'm particularly grateful for all Michael has done to help me overcome my fears and build my confidence. Your patience and kindness is second to none. I was not born yesterday. I am not naive to what it takes to make change in this place. Compromise is always needed. But if we get the settings right, we will end up leaving this state better than we found it. And I intend to do all I can to play my part in making this reality. Thank you.